Let's get you to Capitol Hill with NBC's Julie Surkin. Also with us, former Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley of New York, who previously served as the chair of the House Democratic Caucus, and former Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Charlie Dent. Julie, what key changes were made to get the GOP holdouts on board, and will they survive the Senate?
That is the million-dollar question, Anna, and Speaker Mike Johnson certainly hopes they do. He said today that the House and the Senate have been working very closely on this bill, but the reality is that you have just different Republicans in the House and the Senate, right? In the Senate, you have people who represent entire states, and for them, the cuts to Medicaid, the reforms to that program, the cuts to the IRA era, of course, Inflation Reduction Act era, clean energy tax credits will certainly not bode well for them. I want you to take a listen, though, to what the Speaker had to say this morning. Of course, a huge achievement for him either way. Listen.
We look forward to the Senate's timely consideration of this once-in-a-generation legislation. We stand ready to continue our work together to deliver on the one big, beautiful bill, as President Trump named it himself. We're going to send that to his desk. We're going to get it there by Independence Day on July 4th. And I encourage our Senate colleagues to think of this as a one-team effort, as we have, and to modify this as little as possible.
But there are real political implications for the reforms, for example, they made to Medicaid that Senate Republicans are going to be extremely concerned about. You also have the whole issue of the state and local tax deduction. I know you did such a good job explaining it yesterday, but of course this was a provision negotiated at the last minute by Republicans in purple or blue districts in New York, in California, in Pennsylvania, and Illinois, in states with very high property taxes that they are able to deduct from their federal taxes. Republicans negotiating a $40,000 cap. Nobody in the Senate has an appetite for that, especially when it drives the deficit. So you're going to see some changes made on all of those things. And to get this across the finish line by July 4th will certainly be a hurdle for them.
Congressman Dent, are you surprised the party pulled this off on the House side? Concerned it may pass without members even reading what's in it?
I'm not at all surprised that the bill passed, that Trump helped muscle it through to get some of these recalcitrant members on the hard right who were going to melt when Trump got involved. We all knew that. The real question is, how many members walked the plank unnecessarily? Because the Senate will make major changes to this bill. There's no question about it. The Senate never wanted to do one big, beautiful bill. They could still break this thing up. They are going to do less in terms of Medicaid cuts. They're going to do less in terms of SNAP cuts. That's the food assistance programs. They're going to obviously be more protective of the renewable energy credits. And they will also pare down the expansion of the SALT deduction, and probably on student lending. They probably won't go as far as the House. The Senate has a lower threshold for pain than the House. You have to remember that. And so I think this is going to be a dramatically different bill. Those folks on the hard right who were upset with this bill in the House, they're going to really be upset when the Senate gets through with this thing. So right now it's in the Senate's court, and expect a more measured product coming out of there.
So, Congressman Crowley, if you were in Democratic leadership, what would you be telling your members right now after it looks like Trump and Johnson just sort of steamroll the chamber with this bill? Where does the party go from here?
Well, first of all, every Republican owns this bill now. When it only passes by one vote, that means that every person who voted for the bill owns the bill. So, and I think Charlie's 100% right, as is Julie, when it goes to the Senate. And by the way, when Julie said it was that's the $1 million question, it's actually the $4 trillion question. What will the Senate do? And I think Charlie's right. They will pare it down. It will go to conference. I would tell my members that. And they're going to have to vote on this again, except this time, when it comes back to the Senate, some of those moderates may not like this bill when it comes back. Some of the budget hawks may not like it as well. So this is a long ways to go. But I think the message is that they're cutting 14 million people off of Medicaid, that they are adding trillions of dollars to our nation's debt, and it's not being paid for. So there's a lot here that voting no, you can relax on.
Although what I think is a big takeaway is what Trump says goes if you're a Republican. Julie, give us more of a sense of President Trump's role getting Republicans to fall in line and what it could mean as it's working its way through the Senate, which we just discussed might be a little more prickly to some of what's in this bill.
Speaker Mike Johnson and the entire Republican leadership made absolutely no secret in touting the crucial role that the president played in getting his members to fall in line. I want to read you a little statement that the White House released before the vote, saying President Trump is committed to keeping his promises, and failure to pass this bill would be the ultimate betrayal. We know that in a closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill on Tuesday, he called out members by name. He threw the F-bomb around. I mean, this is a president who, of course, is a populist. It's not so much the deficit that concerns him or Medicaid or all of these other provisions. It's getting his legislation and funding his campaign promises, which include mass deportations, his tax cuts, the signature proposal he had in 2017, which costs a lot of money. And the Senate knows that. They want to make that permanent. They want to keep no tax on tips and overtime in the bill. But as you heard from the congressman, this is going to be a wildly different product if and when it passes the Senate. And we already are hearing from John Thune, from other Republicans who say there's just no way they're going to make that July 4th deadline, Anna.
Again, this is a massive bill. Everyone's still working their way through it. Congressman Crowley, Politico, is reporting that even more people than initially projected, which was around 8 million people, could lose Medicaid coverage based on some of these last-minute changes in the bill. And we know the Congressional Budget Office has very specifically said that the country's lowest earners will take a financial hit from this bill. Politically, if Democrats can't turn that around on the GOP in the midterms, then what does that mean?
Yeah, no, that's what I mentioned. I think that especially when many of these Republicans, the moderate Republicans, said they would not vote for a bill that would cut Medicaid. And now they've just voted for a bill that will cut Medicaid. So I do think that there's an awful lot of meat in here for Democrats to exploit, to use politically. But I think more importantly, it really demonstrates the agenda of the Republicans and what their priorities are. And that is to provide a tax break to the wealthiest among us who don't need a tax break, and take that out of the mouths of children, the poorest in our country, from food stamps to Medicaid. It's only increasing poverty, not decreasing poverty in our country.
Congressman Dent, as we continue to pour through the text, we can look at some of the broader projections. This bill would add trillions of dollars to the deficit. 2.3 trillion is on the low end projection, 3.8 trillion on the high end, and that's based on a lot of analysis from several nonpartisan entities and experts. How do you suppose deficit hawks in the GOP defend that? We know there are some who aren't defending it, but they still got it across the finish line. The House Freedom Caucus got on board.
Well, they're going to have a hard time defending it from a deficit standpoint. But what the Senate's likely to do, they're going to call the tax cuts as they are current policy. That will make the deficit number look better. If they call it a current law, then the deficit number would look much worse. So watch that happen. And remember, this whole process is being driven by extending the 2017 tax cuts. That's what the Senate's interested in. That's what Trump is interested in. I don't think the Senate and Trump really want to do a whole lot to Medicaid. I don't think they want to do a whole lot on the spending side, to be perfectly candid. And I suspect the fiscal hawks in the House will be very disappointed with what comes out of the Senate, because they are not going to go, they just are not going to go as far as the House on Medicaid, which is a vulnerability for Republicans with these loss of coverages that are projected by CBO and others.
Julie
And they may
Sirkin,
not go as low on salt and state and local taxes as well, Anna.
Okay,
Yeah.
so those are two things we'll be watching as this bill continues to work its way through. Now, the upper chamber, before it comes back to the House, before it can land on the president's desk, there's still a little bit of a ways to go. Julie Sirkin, former Congressman Joseph Crowley, Charlie Dent, thank you all. We'll dig more into the details of this bill